I said in the last video that this photo needed one more thing, and that thing is the post-crop vignetting setting. And that's new inside of Camera Raw 5. We can go over to our lens corrections tab here, and what I want to do is darken the edges, all right, because I'd really rather you focus on the people and not so much the bright background that's behind them. Now, we used to be able to do this with lens vignetting. All right, you can see here if I crank up lens vignetting, it does darken the edges, and I can increase that midpoint. And it does a good job if I hit my preview before and then after. It does an okay job at this, and this is what everybody used, even though lens vignetting is really there to fix a lens problem, which you'd normally come in here. If you had a vignetted photo, you could come in and drag this over to the right, and you can make the edges brighter. Okay, but that's not what we want to do here. A lot of people started using this as a special effect. The problem with it is that if I were to crop this photo, right, the darkening does not follow. The darkening only stays on the original photo, not the post-cropped photo. And that was the problem with the lens vignetting setting. If you ever did crop it and still try to darken those edges, you couldn't. You had to take it into Photoshop to do. Okay, so now when we have this post-crop vignetting setting, I'm going to double click on the slider, and that'll set it back to 0 here. With post-crop vignetting, regardless of how the photo's cropped, it's still going to work. But it actually works better because we get in a mount setting, and it's got a lot more, I guess the best word for it is you're going to see this a lot more. So if you want it to be subtle, you can leave it subtle. If you want it to be very strong, it can be very strong. But the whole point is you get much more of an effect with post-crop vignetting than you would with the lens vignetting. And the midpoint setting basically does the same thing as it did before. It encroaches in toward the center more, or it pulls your vignetting out or your darkening out toward the edges more. And then we get two new sliders with this, and that's what I like the most about it, because I find I use these sliders, actually. I don't even use midpoint too much. What I like about the sliders is the roundness one lets me pull the darkening out toward the edge more, and it lets me fit it to the photo more. So if I bring this all the way to the left, and I'm going to increase my mount setting just so you can see, it's almost like it's like a rounded rectangle around the photo. All right. If I bring it toward the right, it's more like a circular effect on the photo. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, and what I want to do, is bring it out more, because I don't want the amount up so high, so I'm going to bring that down. But I do want to bring it out more because I don't want it to encroach so much into her face and into her head here. So for me, that's a good setting. I don't need it that much. I can take it in a little bit further. But that'll keep it from encroaching into her face here and darkening that part of her forehead. And then I follow this up with the feather setting. In the middle here, it's showing me that I can see the edges. And that's the last thing that I want. I don't want people to be able to tell that I darken the edges in this photo. I want it to be a very subtle change. So that's why you don't want to leave this in the middle here at the default. If you bring it toward the left, you're going to get a very, very spotlight kind of effect with it. And if you bring it toward the right, you can start to feather those edges, or basically make them softer. Okay, and I drag it over until I really can't see a definable edge on my lens vignetting here, or my vignetting. I don't want to be able to see that definable edge. I want it to be a very subtle, smooth transition. So I'll drag that feather setting over. All right, so take a look at our preview here, before and then after. So I think it's a nice effect. In fact, one of the things that you can do with it is go over to your presets panel and turn it into a preset. Click on your presets panel, click on that little new icon at the bottom, and just give it a descriptive name here. From your settings, choose post-crop vignetting, and I could just call this edge darkening, and hit OK, and that's going to turn it into a preset, which means that I can come inside of my presets panel and I can just click on it to apply it, versus always having to come in here and change the settings manually.